means that somebody can't just use it whenever they want.
Like, Gracie, someone couldn't take this.
We make sure all the volumes are off on all the computers and everything.
Except this is copyrighted from Marshall Linehan.
Yep.
Well, we work for Marshall Linehan.
Make sure my computer. Can we turn?
But we're the
Let's make sure the
people
phones
around
aren't using any
business.
Wi-Fi either, right?
You don't work for anybody. Everybody works for us.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my.
Right?
No, we work for someone.
Mom, do you work for Marshall Linehan?
I used to.
Is my phone off?
Gonna do that.
I got 10 o'clock, Mom.
Alright.
Oh, you want that light on?
Are you guys ready to go live?
No. Oh. Come on, I gotta have you guys sit down. What? Come on.
Ashley,
Dad, I'm turning off the Wi-Fi.
it's okay.
Just all you do is close the top of the computer, honey.
Once it's off, it's down. Alright, I'm going live.
Let's go. We're gonna do this. Participation.
Where's the sheets?
Where are your sheets? Go get them. Go get your
Oh,
sheets.
they are, Dad.
Here we go. It's okay, we can share too.
What is these Grace's? Sure. Is it live, Mom?
Just a moment, it will be.
Live.
Alright, we are on. We are live.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Thursday's edition of Skills for Surviving and Thriving during COVID-19. Good to see you again. We are doing our second lesson today. I certainly want to acknowledge and appreciate all the support of the people that were there on Tuesday with us, and also apologize for the intrusion that we had. We certainly didn't see that coming. We apologize with your kids in the room and so forth, and so that's really hard. I am Jim Mazza. I am the other half of the duo that is doing this skill streaming. Liz is actually now doing the technology at this point. So we are on Facebook Live. We are. We'll try to get back onto Zoom and Facebook Live next week, and we can go through all the different settings and make sure that we can restrict people's access. So we still would like to have some type of interaction with you at some point, and so we're going to try to tweak it from the conservative side at this point. All right. So how are you guys doing today?
Good.
Good. You're tired, and that makes sense. Some of us are tired, right? So sleep sometimes is hard, right? Anybody remember what we talked about on Tuesday?
No.
No? Okay. You don't remember?
We talked about like a Venn diagram.
A Venn diagram that was discussing what?
The different types of minds.
That's right. We were talking about mindfulness. Great job. And so with that, Ashton, can you introduce yourself, and we'll go around this way. Go ahead.
I'm Ashton. I'm in 6th grade and I'm 11.
Okay.
I'm Grace. I'm in 2nd grade and I'm 8.
Great.
I'm Jackson. I'm in 7th grade and I'm 13.
Great. All right. And so because of the interactions being restricted here, here's what we'd like you to do as we go through. We're going to have some handouts for you. We're going to also give you some time to kind of participate with us. If you'd like to ask us a question, can you put it in the chat area? And then Liz will notify me if we've got a question that's going to happen. Also, there's going to be a little bit of a delay between what you see, what we're doing actually live, and then what you're going to see. And so I'll try to make sure that I'm slow in some of my approaches and talking. That'll be a challenge for me. Well, then also being interactive, all right? And so here's what we're going to do. So we are going to discuss today radical acceptance, all right? So when you want to follow along, we've got some handouts. We're on lesson 10. Here's the book, all right? Lesson 10, actually where I'm going to start is actually on page 148. I have that over here. You can see there is the first handout. We're not going to go to that right away. And so with that, and our kids have those at this point. So Jackson, I want you to think about something regarding radical acceptance. What does that mean to you?
Accepting reality as it is.
Accepting reality as it is, and you've done some of your homework already. How about you, Grace?
Accepting that something's not how you want it to be.
It's not how you want it to be. All right, so speak up a little bit so we can get you in the microphone, okay?
Knowing that it's not how you want it to be, but just doing it.
Okay. Ashley?
It's like, you know you don't want to do it, but you still have to.
Yep.
And it's like not just complaining the whole time, saying you don't get it done, just like doing it anyways.
That sounds like good advice, especially like going to school, huh? All right. So one of the things about radical acceptance is that it's in our distress tolerance skills. And I think when Liz talked on Tuesday, we talked about those two different spots that we're going to be, right? We've got our skills that are going to help us with acceptance and validation. That was mindfulness, right? And it's also going to be our radical acceptance. And then we have skills that when our emotions aren't so high and screaming at us, that we're going to call them change skills, right? And so right now we're still on this side of our dialectic, right? The balance between acceptance and change, that's the big one. So acceptance and change, how do we do the seesaw, right? Or the teeter-totter back and forth? Right now we're on just one side of that teeter-totter. We're doing mindfulness. Do you remember what it was that we wanted to get to in our mindfulness place? Wise mind. Great. And where was that in the Venn diagram, Ashton?
In the middle.
In the middle, right? So it was a combination of reasonable mind and emotion mind. Great, right. So we want to have a little bit of both, right? Okay, so our distress tolerance skills that we're going to cover today are reality acceptance skills. So these are the skills we're going to learn when it's a long-term situation, it's a problem that's causing pain, and we can't solve it. Does anything come to mind for any of you?
Coronavirus.
Corona-19, right? COVID-19, coronavirus. Anything else? School. Online school. Yeah, the kids aren't the biggest fans of the online schooling piece. It's hard, all right? Anything else?
Something in the past.
Something in the past, right, that you can't change? Can you think of anything, Grace, maybe?
COVID-19.
Yes, so we've got that already. Anything else?
Chipping my tooth.
The chip in your tooth. It'd be a great example, right? So Grace has a chip in her front tooth. It's on her permanent front tooth, and so that's been a really hard thing for radical acceptance. So Grace may be able to share some of that as well. And so here's what I want you to think about, all right? So we have these long-term skills, right? So we have these things that we're doing for the long term. We also have our crisis survival skills, which are also distress tolerance skills. We're going to cover those probably next week a bit, where we've got to mind ourselves and not be in emotion in that short term when things are running really hot and not make it worse skills. That's what the crisis survival skills are, right? So the reality acceptance skills are for much more of the long term. I want you to think about, each of you to go ahead and take your sheet of paper. Here's a pencil and a pen here. Write down one thing that you can see that happens to you for one thing that's really big for radical acceptance that you have to do, and one thing that's a little bit smaller.
Where do we write it down?
Write it down on that first sheet, Ashton. Write it down. If you're with us at home, go ahead and write it down on 10.1. Or write it down on a scratch paper. Yep.
Wait, Dad,
You don't
right
have to
here?
have the handouts there.
Just
So,
write it
anywhere you want. Yep. You go ahead and kneel down too, Jackson. If you want me, I can move the table for you too. So totally up to you guys.
Possibly.
Okay. So Jackson, do you have your two things written down?
What?
One large thing, one big issue that you have to radically accept, and one smaller issue that might be like on a daily basis that you have to radically accept. How we doing?
Good.
All right. How we doing at home? All right. Give you a couple more seconds here to write down some of those. Again, a big issue that you have to radically accept, something that's really impacting long term, and a smaller issue that you have to do. Okay. And so let's go there. So Jackson, can you give me what your big issue is?
COVID-19.
Okay. COVID-19. Yeah, I'll do C19. Can we do that? Ashton, big one.
Like, we have so much homework, and I'm just, like, staying up really late trying to finish it, and then I don't get enough sleep.
Okay. Is that a daily issue, or is that you think a much more long term one?
Well, I have to do stuff over, like, the weekend, and they just keep
Yep.
giving us more.
So I'm thinking that one's over here though. How about something where you really have had to, like, oh, that really stinks. Maybe your soccer season, right? You lost your
Oh,
soccer
yeah.
season. Yeah.
And my volleyball season.
So sports for you, right? Got it. So I think that's a big one. Sports season. Grace, how about you?
For
What's
a
your big
big
one? Huh?
Well, I didn't write one, but
You didn't have a big one? That's okay. How about your small
Oh.
one then?
getting teased.
Getting teased? Oh yeah, that's good, right? Okay, so teased, good. And do you have a big issue, Grace? A big one?
Maybe having to stay in the house all day.
House all day, right? So we're kind of confined, right? So the big issue is not being able to go out. Not going out. All right, great. Now, that's our current reality. Is that hard at times?
Yes.
Yes. Does it cause us some pain?
Yes.
Yes. And when we say it shouldn't be this way, why does it have to be this way? What if we did this? Does that help us with our pain or does it make it worse?
It just makes it worse.
It makes it worse, exactly. So we can't get rid of all of our pain, right? So pain here is inevitable. Oh, let's do it this way. Right? Is inevitable. Suffering, which is the coulda, wouldas, and shouldas,
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
right? Suffering is what we call optional. So when we think of things that it shouldn't be this way, why did it have to be that way, right? What if we would have done this? We would actually have a lot more opportunities to experience, it increases our suffering. So that's a problem, all right? And so in that case, what we want to try to do is make sure that we reduce our suffering as much as we can, all right? And we experience just the pain. So the reality of the pain is there, all right? And so what we want to do is try to make sure that we just experience the pain for what it is and for how that is being taking place at that time. We don't want to add fuel to that emotional, painful fire. Right, exactly, right? And we talked about that a little bit in Wise Mind. All right, so if you could turn to handout 10.1.
It's on
Okay.
10.1.
10.1, all right. And Grace, can you read handout 10.1? And Liz will put that up on the board for those of you following at home. There you go. Nice and loud, right?
How to live a life.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Whoops.
Go, how to live a life. You could say that.
How to live a life that is not the life you want. Radical acceptance, turning the mind, willingness, mindfulness of current thoughts.
Great. And we're going to cover today radical acceptance and turning the mind. Those are the two things that we're going to cover today, all right? We'll look at willingness and mindfulness of current thought. We'll get to that at a later point, all right? So in doing that, we want to figure out how do we deal with radical acceptance and using the skill of turning the mind with the issues that you identified, right? So Grace, you came up with B&Ts, Ashton, sports seasons, Jackson, the COVID-19, and then Grace, you're also not going out, right? So Jackson, I actually didn't ask about your small thing. What was your small thing?
Limited outside time.
Limited outside time? Okay, so outside time.
I can't play with my friends.
Yeah. Okay,
Well, not face-to-face, Ashton.
okay.
Still can't
Right.
really play with them.
That's okay. We've got this, all right? So that's good. And you guys have to radically accept that you're with each other all the time, too. So sometimes the siblings don't always get along, right? They like to tease each other here, too. So, all right. So here's what I'm thinking, all right? So how do we become skillful in doing that at this point? And so let's flip over to handout 10.2. I'm going to erase our board here. And Jackson, or Ashton, can you read the first thing about how to solve any problem? 10.2.
Accepting reality.
Nice and loud.
Choices we make.
Here, go ahead.
Number 1, figure out how to solve the problem. Number 2, change how you feel about the problem. Number 3, accept the problem. Number 4, stay miserable or make things worse by acting on your impulsive urges.
Right. So sometimes we make things a lot worse when we act on our impulses, right? And so we give into that
Or
urge.
lie.
We make things worse, right?
Lies.
Or you can lie is one of them, right? Because the impulse, like, oh, I got in trouble, right? Can you think of something, Grace, that you might have done impulsively?
Slap. I don't know.
What have you done maybe that might be impulsive, that where your emotions got the best of you? Can you think of anything?
Sliding my paper off the table.
Sliding your paper off the table, and that made things a lot worse for you? Because
Yeah.
you were just pushing it away, you wanted to get rid of that? Okay. And then, how about you, Ashton? Where have you made had some opportunity, where have you had some times when you've made things worse because you wanted to stay miserable or actually made things worse? Can you think of anything?
I just don't want to do it, and then I just lay down on the span of 3 chairs.
Right.
And sit there and be tired and complain.
Right, and complain. And how does that complaining solve the problem?
Nope, not really.
Does
it just
it make
makes me have to stay up late and
Does it
be
make
more
it worse
miserable.
sometimes?
Yes.
Yes. So it makes it worse. So those are some of our kids' issues where they complain, they make things worse, they dig their heels in, right? And so practicing radical acceptance means trying to get them to understand what is happening and why it is that way, even though they may not like it, right? And so one of the things about radical acceptance, I'm going to come back to it, is that when we radically accept COVID-19, we radically accept about getting teased, we radically accept that we're together, is that acceptance always doesn't mean approval though, right? We don't approve of wanting to be in the house all the time. We don't approve of maybe what one of our siblings have said to us. So radical acceptance doesn't mean approval, right? So acceptance should not be considered approval. Maybe I can write that down. Acceptance
Should not be approval.
Acceptance does not equal approval. Hopefully people can read my writing. Okay? Great. Jackson,
Yeah?
can you read why bother accepting reality?
Rejecting reality does not change reality. Changing reality requires first accepting reality. Rejecting reality turns pain into suffering. Refusing to accept reality can keep you stuck in unhappiness, anger, shame, sadness, bitterness, or other painful emotions.
Okay? So how many of you, I'm turning to you, I'm going to turn to my audience here as well. How many of you like to be stuck in unhappiness, anger, shame, sadness, bitterness, or other painful emotions? How does that feel?
It's like
Bad.
We don't like it, right? How well do you guys do when you're stuck in those emotions?
Not so
Bad.
well.
Not so well, yeah. In the
Not
Mazda
so
household,
well.
if any of our kids are stuck in emotion mind, nobody's happy. That's usually
No.
right. Right, so we want to be skillful in that regard, right? And so same with our parents, right? When mom and dad get stuck in our emotion minds too,
it's not good.
it's not good, right? Not good for you guys, not good for us, right? So we want to find a way to have a win-win scenario, right? So that's why we're going to practice radical acceptance. So here's what we're going to do, all right? So let's pull apart those words, and then Ashton, can you read what radical acceptance is, the next line? Yep,
Yeah.
right here.
Radical acceptance. Acceptance is the skill of accepting the things you cannot change.
Great,
Radical.
that's okay.
There's that one.
Yeah, you can go ahead and read radical, and I'll take
Radical
it down.
equals complete and total accepting in mind, heart, and body.
Complete and total acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what this word I thought it was.
acceptance. Jackson, can you
Yeah.
read what acceptance means?
Acceptance equals seeing reality for what it is, even if you don't like it.
Yeah, even if you don't like it. And why do we have to do that? All right? Because acceptance means that we have to acknowledge, recognize the events, and we have to endure it, right? Not give in, right? And so Jackson, give me that again one more time. What your
Acceptance equals seeing reality
Good.
for what it is, even if you don't like it.
seeing reality for what it is. What it is. All right. That is not always easy, right? And so what I want to do then is turn to handout 10.3. You guys have that, okay? And that's going to be a list that's there, right? So we're gonna
Stress
turn to that
tolerance.
one. Yeah. All right. So what does that say at the top?
Distress, tolerance, radical acceptance, list.
Okay, and it's a list, right? And so
Step by
the
step.
handout says step by step. It's really a list. It's not a procedural step that's there. So what's the idea of what we're trying to do overall? Kind of stepping back and giving a little bit of summary. So what do we want to be doing, Grace? What do you think? What have you heard so far?
Accepting that COVID-19 is really hard.
COVID-19 is really hard, right? Accepting that we had someone Zoom bomb our discussion on Tuesday, right? You really got hammered with that, right? That was really hard for you, right? It took a couple of hours to get back to the reality acceptance there, right? Because suffering was definitely running strong there. Okay, so we want to do this because none of us are happy with our negative emotions, right? We don't feel good about that. So let's give an example that all three of you can understand. Let's say you've got a track meet, you've got a ballet recital, and you've got a soccer game, right?
Volleyball
championship game, right?
I won that game.
All three of you twist your ankle and damage it. So we can say, I don't care, it's a big track meet, I'm going to do it anyway. Is that reality acceptance?
What? Yeah, I hurt my ankle before my first.
No, this is when you've damaged it. Like ligaments are damaged, you can barely walk on it. This isn't a mild twist. So, Jackson, you're going to say, I'm going to do that track meet anyway. I don't care. Can barely walk on it. Is that reality acceptance or not?
No.
No. And you say it shouldn't be that way. Are you increasing the suffering?
Yep.
Pouring gas on it, right? Grace, ballet. You can barely walk on your ankle and you're going to go and do some pirouetting and all the other dances
On
that
that
you do.
foot.
Whatever foot it is, right? So, you think you'll be able to do your recital?
No.
Will you be disappointed?
Yeah.
Will it stink?
Yes.
Totally, right? Totally. If you say it shouldn't be that way, if I didn't get pushed or whatever else, are you accepting the pain or are you actually rejecting reality?
Rejecting and increasing.
Yeah, rejecting and increasing the pain. You're right. Totally agree, right? Does that stink? Yes. So pain is hard enough. What we don't want to do is increase our suffering. All right, Ashton, how about your soccer game?
I would still do it.
You would still do it, so you'd reject the reality.
I'd play in goalie.
I'm talking about you playing in goalie. And you can't put any pressure on your foot. None. Zero. Do you think your coach is going to let you to do that?
Maybe a little bit.
No, I don't think so. I think you're rejecting reality again. All right? I get that sports are important to you. You're being stubborn. You coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? If I could do this, right? So is it painful? Are you going to be bummed that you can't play in the soccer game? Yes, right? So the pain is there. Pain, pain, and pain, right? We have to accept that pain instead of increasing the pain by adding suffering to it. So that's what we're trying to do here, all right? So there's a list here that we have. Liz has just put that up there for you. Let's just read a couple of these. Jackson, can you read, Grace, let's just read number 1. Can you do that for me? Read just the first one.
Observe that you are questioning or fighting reality. It shouldn't be this way.
Right. So has that ever happened to you? Have you ever said it shouldn't be this way? During what situation?
Chipping my tooth.
Yes, exactly what you said. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
it
got
that
really
way.
mad.
You did, right. So
I
that's a
got
good example.
really mad.
All right, Jackson, can you read the second one there?
Remind yourself
Yep.
that the unpleasant reality is just as it is and cannot be changed. This is what happened. I cannot change it.
Yep. So can you think of anything that's happened that way for you? Anything? Anything when you're growing into your adolescence that is just the way it is and it doesn't mean that you like it, it's just the way it is? Yeah, right? You've got acne, right? And so you don't like that and you can't change that, right? You can try to reduce it as much as possible and you can't change it, right? So I think that's really important, right? So that's an excellent example, I think. And how about you, Ashton? What is something, let's have you read number 4.
Or 3.
No, that's okay. I'm going to skip 3. Go ahead and read 4.
Practice accepting
Nice and loud.
with the whole self.
Yep.
Self as in mind, body, and spirit. Be creative in finding ways to involve your whole self. Use accepting self-talk, but also consider using relaxation, mindfulness of your breath, going to a place that helps bring you acceptance, or just an imaginary place.
Great. So can you think of any times that you've done that, where you've had something that's happening and you've gone to just a different place to feel better about situations?
When I do all my math homework, but it's like all wrong,
So when your math's all wrong, then what do?
I just go to my room for like an hour.
Right. So you take a little bit maybe of a staycation. That's in our proof skills that we're going to talk about. All right. So that's good. I did want to note for our audiences there that I actually, on that list, I circled, I'm going to show you mine if you can, I circled numbers 5 and 10. These are actually skills that we're going to cover again, right? And so we're just not there yet. They're on that list. And so we're taking some of these skills out of order from our curriculum. And so I just want to highlight, we'll be getting to some of those as well. All right. So when we find ourselves stuck in not accepting reality, there is the AAA model to help us, right? AAA, and it's not the kind that gets your
Acceptance.
car and tows it back, all right? This is
Action.
this is our AAA right here, right? So
Awareness.
the first step is that we have to be
Action.
we have to have awareness, right? And so when we say awareness, Grace, what awareness do you think I'm talking about?
Knowing what's
Let Grace.
Oh, okay.
Last time I checked, that was her.
Um,
What did we talk about awareness on Tuesday?
being aware of your action,
Your actions and what else?
your words,
Your words and what's maybe going on
your mind.
and inside your body. Nice job. Right? So that's why mindfulness becomes so important, so that we're aware of what our bodies and our minds are telling us, right? That's the first step that we have to do, is awareness. The second is that we have to go to the acceptance piece, right? We have to say, yes, this stinks. I don't like this. It's terrible. And so we will want to try to accept that for as much as we can, right? So that's, how do we do that though? How do we just say, okay, fine, it's COVID-19, my soccer season's over. How do I just accept that's the way it is? How do I accept that I'm getting all my schooling now online and you don't like it? Sure, it's easy for me to say. What can you do though to make that acceptance a reality?
Do it.
Do it. You can just do it. And if you say it should,
Action.
so there's an action. So Jackson, what action do you think that you can do? I like that.
Accept.
You can accept. How do we get there though? I mean, acceptance says, yes, I'm gonna let it be as it is. How do we do that? And I'm gonna give you a hint. It's the next page. Turn over your list to
Stress
hand out.
tolerance.
So it is one of our distress tolerances, right? So what we're going to do for the mechanism to learn how to do this is to use what we call turning the mind. We have to keep turning our mind that we live in COVID-19 right now for the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It could be 2 or 4 months. We have to keep turning the mind that we have a season, a soccer season that is in volleyball. It's no longer happening. We're turning the mind that we've got a tooth that needs to be fixed, right?
She's not
And,
getting it.
or not getting fixed,
getting
right?
it
That she has a
fixed.
chipped tooth.
I'm not getting
All right, and then
fixed.
how about yourself?
Track.
Track. Yeah, you've been wanting to run track again. You did a great job last year, and you were hoping to have a track season to see how much you could improve. And the reality is that that's not going to happen. So one of the things that we're going to do here is, oh, got in front of the camera. I'm going to erase this. In our AAA model, is one of the things to get us there. All right, is going to be turning the mind, right? So this is turning the mind. All right, put it there. All right, Grace, can you read that first part for me in turning the mind? This is handout 11.1. Okay, so yep, perfect. Can you read that first part? Nice and loud.
Acceptance is a choice. It is like coming to a fork in the road. You may have to turn your mind toward the acceptance road and away from the rejecting reality road.
Right. All right. So plan A. Great, Grace. So can you read steps 1, 2, and 3 for me too, Grace?
Okay. Notice when you are not accepting anger, bitterness, or why me?
Mm-hmm. Great. Next one, step 2.
Step 2, make an inner commitment to accept. Step 3, you may have to turn your mind over and over and over again.
All right, great. So those are the 3 steps. If you in the audience want to write some of those down or take a picture of what you see on the screen, that is fine. The idea here is that the turning the mind skill is one of the mechanisms that we can use to help with our reality acceptance. So it's the tool that gets us to accepting reality no matter how painful that is. And so we have to, we were on plan A here, and all of a sudden COVID-19 showed up, right? And it diverted us. We have basically this is a detour, right? We have a detour here, and we have to go all the way now over to plan B. And that detour is not helpful to us for maybe several reasons, and we can't change it, right? So plan B is COVID-19, all right? COVID-19. There we go. All right? And so we've got to be on that. So Jackson, can you read the next part of that handout, please?
Both check marks.
Yep, both check marks.
Factors that interfere with acceptance. Beliefs get in the way. You believe that if you accept your painful situation, you will become weak and just give up or give in. Approve of reality or accept a life of pain. Emotions
Okay,
get
well, let's pause. I'm going to have you pause just for a second there, all right? So you in the audience, here's what I want you to do, and parents, if you're joining them, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, a minute to think about what factors for your kids get in the way of acceptance or interfere with acceptance. So what kind of factors get in the way? I'm going to have a conversation here with these guys. Certainly want to give you time to have a conversation with your own kids there as well, all right? So, and if you don't have your parents there and you're just watching, just go ahead and write some of those factors down on your scratch paper. All right, so what factors do you think get in the way of your acceptance? I'll start with you, Jackson. Do you think of anything?
YouTube.
YouTube. So having a screen there, right? So that gets in the way of you. What? It kind of distracts you from what you need to be doing. Okay. Ashton. So homework. What gets in the way though? What factors interfere with you accepting reality that you have homework to do?
Like me calling with my friends.
Calling with your friends. So again, you get distracted with your friends and you get lost in what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems pretty good. Grace, what do you think gets in the way for you?
A really bad timer.
A bad timer.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
It just gets stuck a lot, so I just
Oh,
watch it.
your
Yeah, my timer.
your sand
yeah,
timer.
So I just
Got it,
get
got it.
Stuck.
right?
Yeah,
So,
so I don't.
but does that get stuck? Does it get stuck for you so that you can't accept reality?
Well, I just don't do my homework when I do it.
Okay. All right. So that's tough. All right. Hey, Ashton, can I get you to read then the second check mark?
Yeah.
Emotions get in the way.
Emotions get in the way.
Nice and loud.
Emotions get in the way. Intense anger at the person or group that causes the painful event. Unbearable sadness, guilt about your own behavior, shame regarding something about you, rage about the injustice of the world.
Okay. Have we had any rages of the injustice of the world?
Yes.
What is injustice?
Politics.
Yeah, politics, and we're going to leave it at that, right? Politics is definitely something that gets everybody all amped up. We'll leave it at that. Other injustices that we've seen.
What is injustice?
Sorry, Grace. Good question. So injustice means it's not fair, that we don't think that was very just to do something to somebody, right? Or we feel like that we're not being treated fairly.
That people can't go into the same room as like their newborn baby or something in a hospital.
That's a great one. People can't go into a room like with their newborn baby or into the hospital to see people who are sick, right? That seems like a big injustice, right? And if we rage against that, right? Because we have a good friend who lost a parent, right? And they can't see them, or they can't have a funeral, right? Oh, right. And so if we keep thinking like it shouldn't be that way, it could be a perfect example of that's plan B, right? That we've got to go to a different thought. So how did we do at home there? Did we come up with some factors? And parents, were you able to have some time to kind of discuss these factors with your kids?
Yeah, they're having a lot of getting cognitively stuck on the unfairness of the world right now. The shoulds.
The
and
shoulds,
shouldn'ts.
right. Yeah, we all are, right? And so that turning the mind piece then becomes so important. You're right. We can't change what's happened in the past. Do we wish that we would have had a different reaction, a different response to our whole COVID-19 situation? Yeah, I do. All right, a lot of us do. And we can't change the past, right? And if we keep saying if they just would have done this, or if they could have done this, that's that suffering. We're putting gas on the pain that already is COVID-19. And if we keep pouring gas on it, it becomes COVID-19 squared. It gets worse and worse, just ramping up really quickly that way. And so we don't want that, because once we get ramped up that strongly, we're no longer going to be in our wise mind. We're actually going to be in emotion mind, and likely make poor decisions, or ineffective decisions, I should say, right? And so we want to stay away from that. So one of the things that's important here, as a kind of a going away message here for turning the mind, is that we want to provide some type of thought, some type of like equation here with where we are. So I want to highlight for you, let's see where I might have my sheet here, I need to erase my board. So as we have this here, thanks.
And while you're erasing that, somebody's got a comment
Yeah.
that the emotions of the parents also make things much worse. So maybe talking about how these are also skills for parents as well, especially when everybody's on top of each other.
Yeah. So the skills that we have and that we're teaching our kids certainly go for the adults as well. As a matter of fact, some of these, all these skills are used with adults who are in treatment or have difficulties with emotions. And all of us right now, whether you have treatment or not, or if you're just being at home, it's a difficult time. Your emotions, your anxiety, your discomfort of getting thrown off of your game and off of your schedule is amping up some of those emotions. I mean, when I've gone out, people are a little bit more grumpy these days, right? It's hard. Everybody's feeling a little bit more anxious. That is actually increasing some of our suffering here. So what I wanted to add here is we've kind of got an equation here where we talked about pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So suffering equals pain plus non-acceptance. Right? So when we do non-acceptance, the coulda, wouldas, and shouldas, right, we then actually increase our suffering. And the more non-acceptance, the more this increases, the more suffering we're going to experience, right? What happens, Grace, Ashton, and Jackson, if I take away this part of the equation? Right, to erase this, and we take away the non-acceptance, what happens?
Just pain.
It's just pain. Pain equals pain. The suffering goes away. Because all we have then is pain equaling pain.
But that's worse.
And, well, that's hard. And this is a painful situation. We don't want to make it worse, more painful to us, because we've added suffering to it. We want to find out a way to go forward, because we can handle pain. We've got skills to handle pain. The suffering is the part where our minds and our thoughts start to take over, and we make ineffective decisions. So we want to use our radical acceptance skills and turning the mind so that we can have pain equaling pain and us not providing suffering. So I think that we have a take-home slide, Liz, correct?
Sure. We don't.
We don't?
I made it, but I don't know where it went.
So take-home messages are this, that we're in a very difficult spot. So I think there were 3 of them, right? We're in a difficult position here with COVID-19 that we're often on top of each other in our own homes. Number 2 is that radical acceptance is a distress tolerance skill for the long term. When problems can't be solved, we've got our AAA model here that we can go to see that we're in radical acceptance. All right? And then number 3 is that when we find out, when we're using our awareness skills to find out that we are in radical acceptance, all right, is that what we want to do is to then you put into action, right? So we have to be aware using our mindfulness skills, right? We have to accept things as they really are, and then we have to put into action. And one of those actions right now is using turning the mind. So we can notice when we're not in non-acceptance, right? So keep turning your mind, and it might be that if you turn your mind 3 or 4 times a minute, it might be 3 or 4 times an hour. Keep coming back to it and back to it when you start to see that non-acceptance is coming up, all right? So the wouldas, couldas, and shouldas is a really good sign that you've increased your suffering, all right? Yes, it's painful enough. Let's try not to increase the situation by adding fuel to the fire. All right, with that, summary, AAA, wouldas, couldas, and shouldas are our way that we know that we're in non-acceptance. We're going to turn to acceptance through turning the mind, and we're going to then deal with the pain as it is at that point.
Dad?
All right, yes, question?
Do we have time to play a game?
Okay, we do. So let's do that. Let's do a mindfulness thing. I should have started off with mindfulness. Let's do letter switch.
Yay.
Can we do letter switch?
Sure.
So for those of you at home, letter switch is a participate activity. So it's part of our what skills. It is where we're going to come up with a 3-letter word, and I'm going to have each of my children and myself, and maybe Liz can join us. We're going to switch 1 letter. And so you can't be worried about what word you're going to say, because it may change based on the letter. So for example, we might do something like the word cat. And Jackson could then say hat, right? I changed the C to an H, right? And then Grace could say hot, right? Changing the A to an O. And so we're going to go around the circle that way. You're not worried about what just happened in the past, what somebody said, and not worried what word you're going to say in the future. All right? And parents, if you want to just take a second to get your kids there and practice that with your kids at home as well, go ahead and do that. You guys, let's go ahead and stand up, and then we'll see if we can't recruit Mom to join our circle here in a second. All right?
Recruit Mom.
So, Grace, we're going to have you start off. What 3-letter do you want to start off with?
Wig.
So she's going to start with wig, W-I-G.
Win.
Win, W-I-N. Fin, F-I-N.
Fun.
F-U-N.
None.
None, F-N-U-N.
N-U-N.
N-U-N, none. Is N-O-N-E maybe?
That's not.
All right, so none. Okay, we'll let that fly.
N-U-N.
None, like the nuns
No,
at
oh,
church.
the none. Thank
All right.
you. I'm not thinking that. Go. It's okay. Change one letter. N-U-N.
Non.
That's
Non.
That's
N-A-A-N.
Yeah,
That's
that's
A-N.
okay. Good try.
That's a good one, N-A-N.
N-U-N.
Run.
Yeah, thank you, boys, for helping. Run. R-U-N.
Run goes to bun.
Bun. That's the one I was going to use. Good job. All right, so bun. So I have to be mindful in the moment. Bun. How about butt? B-U-T.
Bit.
B-I-T.
Bat.
B-A-T.
Bam.
Bam.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, B-A-M.
We'll do bam. We'll
Yeah.
get that. What do you got? B-A-M.
Ram.
Ram. R-A-M. Damn. D-A-M.
Fam. F-A-M.
All right,
All
guys, we'll stop. Good
Bam.
job. Here you go.
Good job.
Nice
Lit.
Josh.
Let's
Let's give them a chance to finish up.
Yay.
Lit.
The fam.
let's talk about why is that relevant and how is that important to actually doing mindfulness
Because
and
you're
radical
staying
acceptance.
in
Wait,
the
hold on.
moment.
Let's let our group catch up. Okay. So Liz is right. So we do our mindfulness exercise. We usually do them at the beginning, and so trying to get going here on time, I skipped over that piece. So why do we do a fully participate lesson? What's the reason behind that? And Jack, go ahead, Ashton, now.
So you're not like thinking ahead like what you're gonna do. You're just like being in the moment,
Being in the moment, right?
just enjoying.
All right, Jackson, you were going to comment on something. All right, Grace, anything that what you liked about that participate exercise? Nice and loud.
You get to
You
think.
get to think, right?
You get to use your mind.
Right, and so the participant exercise again, just to be in the moment, right? We're trying to train our minds to be in the present moment, right here, right now, not 2 seconds in front, not 2 seconds behind, right? And so there are other participant exercises that we'll do. I think that we did one also on Tuesday as well, right? About Zen counting. So with that, I want to wish everybody a good, emotionally skilled weekend. And again, we will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays next week, all right? And then also, we actually, if the parents are listening, we actually do a parenting through COVID-19, I don't know if it's a seminar, discussion, live stream for a half an hour. Liz and I do that on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings that utilize some of the skills as well. More designed for the parents, though. We have it at 7 o'clock in the morning, at least Seattle time, so our kids are still asleep.
And
so
you
that
can find us there on Facebook Live at DBT in Schools and on Instagram at DBT in Schools. And the goal of that time is just really focusing on how do we parent, partner, work, and educate our kids all through this COVID-19. What are the skills we need to support ourselves getting through the day-to-day?
Right.
Same skills we're teaching these guys here today. We want to also make sure parents have them as well. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we will hope to see you all back here next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And these recordings will be available on Facebook Live, on Facebook page, and on our website of DBTinschools.com.
Go skillfully, enjoy, and have a good time.
Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Rate us.